At the end of Life is Strange Double Exposure Chapter 3, Max finds out that she's not the only person out there with superpowers. For us fans, it's something we've known since we saw Daniel at the end of Captain Spirit. But for our favorite millennial time traveler, it's a major revelation. And to make things more complicated, it's not just some rando. It's her best friend Safi, who can shapeshift into other people. After saving Safi on the ice by switching the living world's frozen lake with the dead world's frozen lake, Max brings Safi back to her house for a much-needed heart-to-heart. As they warm up by the fire, they trade stories about how they got their powers and the things they've used them for. Max, of course, shares what happened with Chloe in Arcadia Bay, while Safi explains that she's been using her ability to shapeshift to get revenge on everyone who wronged her and her friend Maya. Safi's hit list includes Lucas, who plagiarized Maya's book, which led Maya to take her own life. Vin, who released a public statement blaming Maya's suicide on a history of mental illness, and Gwen, who Safi thinks sabotaged the publication of her book, a book that she planned to use to expose Lucas's actions. During this conversation, Max has a decision to make. While explaining the existence of two parallel timelines, Max can keep things simple and tell Safi that in one timeline she's alive, and in the other she's dead. Or she can lay it all out there and admit that in the Dead World timeline, she was forced to shoot her to prevent a storm just like the one that threatened Arcadia Bay. No matter how you handle this complicated matter, the duo's next step is to continue Safi's revenge tour. They head to the Snapping Turtle, where they intend to expose Lucas during the roast at the end of the Krampus on Campus celebration. Of course, the subject of a roast always expects to get, well, roasted. But Max and Safi are out to take things a step further, as they plan to show everyone undeniable proof that he plagiarized Maya's book. It's familiar territory for Max, in many ways, as she's once again trying to bring down a corrupt creative arts teacher who's manipulating their students, just like she did with Mark Jefferson back at Blackwell Academy. In doing so, the developers are setting up a parallel between teenage Max and present-day Safi. Back in Life is Strange 1, when Max dove headfirst into the mystery of Rachel Amber, she used her powers without concern for the consequences. She had a righteous purpose and a predator in her sights. Who could blame her for using the gifts the universe granted her? Now, Safi is in that same position. Lucas drove her best friend, her Rachel Amber, to take her own life by passing off her work as his own, and now he's about to score a movie deal. She has every right to want revenge, and to want to use her powers in pursuit of it, just as Max once did. But the difference between the older, more mature Max that we're playing here in Double Exposure and the Max of Life is Strange 1 is that she has enough lived experience with superpowers to know how this ends. She knows that overusing her powers can only lead to trouble, no matter how noble her intentions might be. Safi doesn't understand that yet, and unfortunately, it's not the type of thing she's going to understand without being forced to make a decision as difficult as the one Max did back in Arcadia Bay. Still, Max doesn't want to lose another friend. She's lost so much already, either Chloe or all of Arcadia Bay, depending on your decisions. So she supports Safi here, despite the fact that she knows the storm is on the horizon. With the help of Dead World Moses, who's easily the MVP NPC of this game, by the way, Max sabotages the projector, which is delightfully named Olga, in such a way that only Living World Moses can fix it, allowing her to replace Lucas's slides with the evidence that her and Safi have gathered. Before the big roast, Lucas nearly gets cold feet, but with some effective use of her Mystique-style powers, Safi turns into Loretta, and with an assist from Max, convinces him to go through with it. But along the way, Max discovers that Lucas has a gun, the very same gun shown in the photo where Max shot Safi, solving that part of the mystery. Max shows it to Safi, who decides to hold on to it, which proves to be a decision that I'm sure our time-traveling protagonist wishes she could erase. In the roast, Lucas is exposed, but manages to bullshit his way through it, prompting another decision. Determined to avenge Maya, Safi makes for the stage, planning to shapeshift into Vin and finish the job. Max can either encourage her to do so or convince her not to use her powers and close the thing out as herself instead. Either way, Lucas's plagiarism is laid bare, and the crowd turns on the fraudster. Before they can celebrate their victory, however, Lucas approaches Safi, asking her to speak with him outside. Max is hesitant to let her go, but Safi's packing heat, so she's confident about meeting with him. Meanwhile, Max returns to Dead World to update Moses. Upon her return to Living World, all hell breaks loose. Everyone Safi's ever impersonated starts screaming what are clearly her words, and the storm descends upon Caledon. Max rushes to the Overlook, where she finds Safi confronting her mother, Yasmin. Here, it's revealed that Yasmin played a major role in orchestrating the cover-up of Maya's death. Not only did she manipulate Vin into putting out a statement about her poor mental health, but she also swept Lucas's plagiarism under the rug, and was the real force behind the cancellation of Safi's book, which she did to ensure that the truth about what happened to Maya, and by extension, her own cover-up, never came to light. This twist is one of the game's more poorly explained plot elements, but to make sense of it, it seems to me that the developers are trying to tell us that Yasmin, at her core, is just like so many other people in power. She's desperate to hold on to it, so much so that she didn't want to rock the boat years ago when her decorated English professor was exposed as a fraud. And now, she'll do anything to keep up appearances, even if it means shattering her own daughter's hopes and dreams. As for why the storm has come to Caledon, it has everything to do with Safi's overuse of her powers. That's why everyone she's impersonated is echoing her words. That's why she keeps uncontrollably shapeshifting into other people in this scene. Just like Max back in Arcadia Bay, she's stretched the limits of reality, and now reality is fighting back. Max has yet another choice here, to try and talk Safi down or rush her in an attempt to prevent her from shooting Yasmin. But no matter what you do, Yasmin takes a bullet to the shoulder. It's then that Double Exposure advances to its final chapter. Safi hands Max the gun, horrified with what she's become, realizing that she's used her power so much that there's little of herself left. So much of who she is made up of other people, and now the only way to stop the storm is to do what Max did back in the photo. Unwilling to choose between two shitty futures once again, Max takes Safi by the hand, bringing her into the storm to try and avert disaster. The final chapter of Double Exposure is very much a callback to the last stanza of the original game, where Max basically went through a crazy existential nightmare as she grappled with whether to save Arcadia Bay or save Chloe. As she navigates the eye of the storm, she encounters all of the characters that Safi has impersonated. It's here that we get a closer look at the downside of Safi's powers. When Safi impersonates someone, she leaves a piece of herself in that person. And now, everyone she's shapeshifted into is stuck in the eye of the storm with her and Max. Thus, Max's task here is to remove those pieces of Safi from each of these people by using her camera and double exposing the image. That way they can be fully themselves again. Just as Max's powers had the unintended consequence of always fucking something up, like how saving Chloe's dad resulted in Chloe herself getting into an accident that left her immobilized, Safi's shapeshifting harms others by creating this web of people who have fragments of Safi buried inside of them. And now, they're as much at risk as Max and her new super friend. As she frees everyone from Moses to Lucas, Max also experiences some callbacks to her past, like the hotel room she stayed in on the road, possibly with Chloe if you chose to save her, and Jefferson's dungeon, which she reveals she still has nightmares about, and even the bathroom where Nathan Prescott shot Chloe, kicking off this whole mess in the first place. Finally, Max meets up with Safi, the real Safi, not the fragment she found in other people, and then removes the last fragment of Safi from herself, thus ending the storm. Max is then transported back to the Overlook, where Yasmin lies wounded, and Safi has experienced a sort of revelation. Back in the storm, she expressed that she feels like her powers have made her into something of a god, and it doesn't sound like recent events have changed that opinion at all. She encourages Max to keep using her powers, something that Max is initially resistant to, given that, as I've said throughout this video, she knows the consequences. But Safi is undeterred. She tells Max to think of all the things they could fix if they worked together, a time traveler and a shapeshifter, and then says that she wants Max to stay here and enjoy the splendors of teaching at Caledon, while she goes out into the world to find more people like them, people with powers. Max can't stop Safi from taking on this bold new mission, but she is given the choice of whether or not to participate in it. And with that, we reach the game's final choice: whether to agree to wait for Safi to return from her hero-gathering quest with open arms, or refuse to team up with her. In some ways, it reminds me of the decision from the end of Dragon Age Inquisition's Trespasser DLC. There, the Inquisitor had no way of stopping Solas' plan, but they can choose to oppose him outright or state their intention to save him from himself. Here, Safi's mind is made up. She's going to become the Nick Fury of Life is Strange, whether we like it or not. Thus, Max is faced with the choice of supporting her plan or turning her down. If you agree, the two will embrace before Safi departs. If you refuse, then Safi will shapeshift into Max and run off, which certainly does not speak well to how she intends to use her powers. Later, Max walks through Caledon's campus, conversing with various characters as she surveys the damage. In stopping the storm, both timelines have merged, meaning that all of the characters remember what happened to them in both the living and the dead world. They also have full knowledge of Max and Safi's powers, as they experienced all of this firsthand. It's a big development for the Life is Strange universe. In previous games, knowledge of powers was always confined to a small group of people. Now, the whole campus is aware that there are folks like Max and Safi out there. To that end, Max heads to the Snapping Turtle, where Moses, Amanda, Finn, Reggie, Diamond, and Gwen are all waiting for an explanation. Again, they know the gist of what happened, but understanding it is a different story. So they've come to the local watering hole to hear it from Max herself. After checking in with everyone and getting some closure on some of the game's minor quest lines, Max has a final conversation with Moses, and if Chloe is alive, she'll express that she is, indeed, interested in making amends with her old partner in crime. It's a small treat for those who are upset about Deck 9's handling of their breakup or parting of the ways, though I doubt it will satisfy anyone. Max then steps up and begins to explain her powers and what lies ahead to end the game. After the credits, we get a Marvel-style post-credits scene that is, in just about every way, a Marvel-style post-credits scene. We see Diamond at the Overlook, wiping away a nosebleed, implying that she's the latest character in this universe to get powers. Safi then appears behind her and tells her that she can either run from her powers or follow her to get some answers. So, essentially, what Safi says here is,
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Finally, after the screen fades to black, we're given confirmation that Max Caulfield will return someday. And with that, Life is Strange Double Exposure comes to an end. Based on this, I think we can conclude a couple of things. First, it sure seems like Deck 9 intends to keep using Max as the main character of the series moving forward, or at the very least, to feature her above and beyond everyone else. I'm okay with this, personally. Max is one of my favorite video game protagonists of all time, and though I have mixed feelings about a lot of what the developers did with Double Exposure, I do think they nailed her personality. She's the quintessential millennial MC, and as an aging millennial myself, it was really cool to see Max as an aging millennial. Where things go from here remains to be seen, but it sure seems like she's going to stick around in Caledon to keep teaching while she waits for the other shoe to drop with Safi. And as for Safi, it sure looks like she's determined to gather the Avengers of the Life is Strange universe. Which begs the question, is she going to run into Alex and Daniel next? I'm sure that's where this is going, but the latter is going to be quite a challenge to navigate from a narrative perspective in light of the 4 very different endings to the second game. Given how much flack Deck 9 got for their handling of Pricefield, I wish them the best of luck with that one. And speaking of Pricefield, that's just one of several reasons that a lot of fans have some serious issues with this game. So I hope you'll join me next time as I take a measured look at Life is Strange Double Exposure and cover the things I did enjoy about the game, as well as the things I really didn't like about it. Thanks for watching. Big shout out to all my Silver and Gold tier YouTube channel members and Patreon subscribers, including James Pruitt, Corey Matson, Gustavo Balabi, Little Caesar, Reed, Pathonian, Faith G, and Anna Novikova, who get early access to these videos thanks to donations of $5 to $10 a month. See you guys next time.